Hello, family. Welcome back to Life Reconsidered with your girl, Dr. T. Today, we want to look at a follow-up question. And the question is, if compatibility can change, or if compatibility is not a fixed trait and is not written in stone, then how can we create intimacy in our marriages? The dictionary definition of compatibility says it's a state where two people exist or live together without problems or conflicts. Think about that. A state where two people exist together, live together, interact with each other without problems or conflict. Now, right from the get-go, you realize that there is a tiny little bit problem with this definition right here. And the problem is, wherever two people live together, share the same space together, there is bound to be problems or conflict. And the reason is that these two people have different backgrounds. They have different personalities and they have different characters. And therefore, it's easy for them to rub on each other wrongly, resulting to problems or conflict in the relationship. In the Bible, Prophet Amos asks us a question. And in Amos chapter 3, verse 3, he says, can two people walk together except they are in agreement? Right? And I think you and I can attest to that. Now, what he's saying here does not negate the absence of problems or conflict. But what the question is alluding to is the fact that before two people can decide they want to walk together, they have to be able to come to a place of compromise, a common ground, where they are able to have understanding for one another, so that regardless of the problems and conflict and arguments and challenges that may come, these two people will find a common ground of agreement so that they can sustain that harmonious atmosphere from the beginning that they have tried to create. So the question is, how do we create intimacy in our marriages regardless of our different backgrounds, regardless of our different personalities, and regardless of our different characters? Before we go into that, we want to establish the fact that compatibility, or liking one another, or having likeness for one another, has the end goal of building intimacy in the marriage. You don't just like somebody because you like them. You like them so you can build a relationship with them. You like them so you can get to know more about them. So the fundamental is being able to get along. But the end goal of getting along is to build intimacy. And to look at how we can build intimacy in our relationships, we want to take a look at the 4 different types of intimacy, and then we can look at them one by one and how we can foster, intimacy in this aspect. Okay, so the first one, which is the common one that most of us know, is the area of physical or sexual intimacy. Now, with physical or sexual intimacy, the things that can help to foster The closeness in this aspects are holding hands, hugging each other, rubbing each other's back, kissing, having a sense of sexual connectedness, making sure you have time for that is important, and also doing physical activities together, like exercising together, walking together, running together, sometimes even doing chores together can help to build that physical intimacy between you and your spouse. The second type of intimacy is emotional intimacy. And with emotional intimacy, the things that are helpful are being vulnerable with one another, opening up about your feelings, about your challenges, your difficulties, making sure that you and your spouse are creating an atmosphere which fosters a sense of belonging, a sense of acceptance, and a sense of feeling safe. It is important that you don't hide things from your partner, because when you do, it actually raises up a wall between you and your partner. And this can lead to distrust in the relationship. So having a sense of vulnerability and opening up about where you are, your challenges, your feelings, is important to build intimacy in the relationship. And this has to do with emotional intimacy. The third type of intimacy that we want to look at is intellectual intimacy. And with intellectual intimacy, it's important for you to express your thoughts, ideas, ask questions, ask clarification. Don't be afraid to have interaction with your spouse. Get to know each other a little bit more. Get to know each other's career or jobs. Ask questions around that. Have friendly debates about sports, politics, things that are going on around you. It's important to expand your conversations beyond your children, beyond your duties and responsibilities, so that you and your spouse can intellectually stimulate one another and strengthen the bond of love and unity that is between you. And the final one that we want to look at is spiritual intimacy. And with spiritual intimacy, it actually goes to buttress the point that we've been emphasizing, that it's important to marry somebody from your religious group. And the reason is that spiritual intimacy has to do with your spiritual journey. So talking to your partner about your spiritual journey, your obedience to God, your challenges, some of the questions you don't understand about your faith, you can talk about it, ask questions about it. You can also open up and listen to your partner as well, praying together, fasting together, attending activities, religious activities together, are all things that can foster your spiritual intimacy. So for those of you who may be listening to me and you are yet to marry, these are some of the reasons why we try to emphasize the fact that it is important to marry somebody from your religious group, so that this aspect of intimacy will not elude you. You and your partner can have the opportunity to create this aspect of intimacy. And what I want to add here is the fact that when you are intimate with your partner, it goes beyond just creating love between the two of you. It becomes a foundation for you to also build upon your intimacy with God. Think about that. So very important there. Now let's look at some of the things that can hinder intimacy in our relationships and marriages. Now, one thing that can hinder intimacy, we already said, is argument and conflict. Now, how do you deal with arguments and conflict in marriages? The first step is to find out the source of the conflict. What are some of the stresses that are bringing constant arguments in the relationship? What are some of the arguments that are stressing you and your partner out? In essence, there might be some small arguments. It's easy, you can handle it, but there might be some conflict and arguments that are huge. And it's important to recognize that if you are dealing with something that is beyond you and you don't have the resources to handle it, you can bring in somebody to help you kind of navigate that so that you and your partner can come to a place where you can build intimacy. The first step, as we said, is recognizing the stresses that are bringing this conflict and arguments. After you recognize the stresses, the next step is to look at what are the resources available to us to deal with the stresses or arguments. After you identify those resources, and one of those resources can be, like I said, bringing in somebody to help you and your partner to navigate the situation. And after you recognize the resources around you, the third step is to actually take steps, take action. You and your partner take action in effort to resolve the conflict. Besides continual arguments and conflicts that hinder intimacy in our marriages, another thing that can also hinder intimacy in our marriages is dishonor. Each and every one of us want to be loved, respected, and honored. So if you dishonor your spouse, whether at home, outside home, or in the presence of people, they tend to withdraw away from you. And that can definitely affect the intimacy between you and your partner. Another thing that can affect intimacy is a life of distrust, being secretive, not opening up, not want to share. It breeds distrust. And when distrust sets in, people withdraw from the relationship. Walls goes up, and people tend to be careful, kind of walking on eggshells around your partner. So that's another thing that can hinder intimacy. One more or two are the fact that split attention can result to split affection. Now, what that means is that when you and your partner are not intentional about giving your affection to each other 100% holistically, and there is the tendency for one partner or both of you to have a divided attention in the relationship, it can definitely create mistrust there. Unfortunately, for some people, when there is conflict or argument in the relationship, they tend to think about their previous relationships, their previous partners, how they treated them, or how they would treat them. And in that, they dwell on it and they give part of their attention to that, part of their energy to that, and they are not able to focus on giving their attention and energy to resolving the problem that is in front of them and showing their partner some love and affection. For others, it may not necessarily be splitting their attention between previous relationships, but they tend to form new relationships outside of their marriage. And that is also splitting attention. And when you do that, splitting your attention between your spouse and the new relationship would lead to splitting affection between you and the partner. Okay, so splitting attention leads to splitting affection. Now, two more quickly, and we will try to get to a close, are poor physical health. When somebody is sick and they're not doing too good, it definitely affects the intimacy in the relationship. And last but not least, low self-esteem or mental illness. These can also affect intimacy in the relationship. All right. That is all for today. If you have any question, please don't hesitate. Contact me at mylifereconsidered@gmail.com. Thank you for hanging out with me once again, and see you next week here at Life Reconsidered. Bye.